Greens co-leader, what huge news has this been? Blown out of the water. Matiria Ture announced a big policy over the weekend. The poorest will be taxed less, the richest taxed more, and benefits will increase by 20%. Well, depending on who you're talking to, let's go to Jan first. I want to ask you first, Matiria lied to work an income in order to get more money. Yeah. What do you think personally, was that okay? Was that okay?
You know, like I look back on the Victorian era and those stories about people who stole bread to feed their kids and were deported or sent to jail.
This is the 90s in New Zealand. This is the 90s in New Zealand.
Like in the Victorian ages, I know. And I look back at that and I'm like, God, what a cruel society. And I'm hearing in people's responses to Matiria's story the same cruelty. I think it's time to move on. It's time to actually get angry about poverty and the causes that people are doing that.
Was it okay to lie to wins?
What? If you're going to feed your kid and your kid can't eat, then I say she came out so that people would know that we are not going to judge them. And I am not going to judge her or anyone else. We are going to fix this problem. When kids are dying and people are in their cars, we are going to fix that, and we are not going to judge people who do what they need for their kids.
First, was it okay for Matiria to come out and say this, Peter?
Well, look, it's 25 years ago, a different set of circumstances. I actually think it's quite irrelevant. And I think that the reason she raised it was to try and give some profile. I think it backfired badly. I think that
do you?
I do. I think a lot of people are asking legitimate questions about her honesty and her integrity.
And what is that main question for you?
Well, did she do it? If so, why? But as I say, it's really irrelevant because it's so long ago. But the point is, it's detracted from a quite good debate that she should have initiated about welfare reform. Now the issue is not that, but her credibility, and she shot it.
They need to know they're not judged and that somebody can trust somebody to fix it.
The reason Jan won't answer the question is because she knows that she shouldn't have done it. And she knows that...
I did answer it.
You didn't answer the question.
I said she should have fed her kids. She did what she needed to feed her kids.
She shouldn't...
And we're not going to judge it.
Chris,
we're not going to
hang on, Jan.
On the same logic, there are plenty of small businesses out there struggling who have to pay their tax bills at the end of every month, their GST, and pay the tax department. There are plenty of small businesses out there who can use the same excuse to say that they need to take a bit of extra and not give it to the government for whatever reason in order to pay PAYE to their employees, in order to pay people. So it's a very slippery slope once you start down.
Ever been on a benefit, Chris, where you know that the next Powerball comes in and you just cannot pay it? There is always, and it's been like this forever, there's a disconnect between what you get in and what you have to pay out. That's the problem.
Absolutely.
So if you need to look after your children, isn't this the right thing to do?
Absolutely, and no one's saying that... No one is arguing that living on a benefit is easy, but we don't live in 1830s United Kingdom anymore. We live in 2017 in New Zealand.
Let's go to Labour.
We've raised benefit levels.
Let's go to Labour. What was Matiria, what she came out and said, was it the right thing to do? To lie, to wins?
Look, I don't think we want to encourage anyone to lie to a government department.
So no.
I think she would have preferred to, at the time, not to have lied. But she was trying to point out that she has empathy with a whole lot of families that are struggling at the moment, and that this government has ignored for 9 years.
I'll come back and talk about. I'll come back and talk about policy, Charlotte. Over to you.
Yes, in the audience out here, I've got Esther, who's just moved from Auckland down to Wellington. Esther, have you been on a benefit before?
I was on the student allowance when I was studying. When I was younger, my mum was on a benefit, my dad was on a benefit. Domestic purposes, childcare subsidies, accommodation subsidies, invalids, sickness, all of them. But I think that desperate times called for desperate measures, and I think Matiria did what she needed to do to get it done.
Kia ora.
Interesting.
All right, very good. Let's go to Jan, to the policy. So, benefits increased by 20%, and on top of that, a no questions asked benefit.
Yeah.
How fair is that to the average taxpayer? No questions asked.
It's what we need to do to stop kids. More than one kid a week is dying of poverty in this country from low-income related diseases. We've got a choice.
One kid a week dying of poverty?
More than. It's Otago University research. 60 kids a year are dying of low-income related diseases.
Peter, do you support a 20% increase in benefits and no questions asked policy like the Greens?
No, I don't. Last year we had the biggest rise, the first rise in benefits for 45 years. a $25 a week
Didn't bring
increase.
anybody over the poverty threshold. Not one group of people.
If you're
Not
having,
one. It didn't.
you've got
You did the
to,
research.
hang on. You've got to have a benefit system that realises that what you're doing is helping people through difficult transitions in life. That comes with obligations, and one of the obligations is that you tell the truth about your circumstances and you make all the efforts you can to move through that period of transition. And I think,
And be treated with dignity.
Yeah, and I think there are issues about that. All of those could have been raised in the context of the Greens policy, but in fact what happened was Materia's conduct has shot that out of the water and shot the credibility of it.
Okay. Hey, Kris.
It's actually a really important policy discussion to have.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because our benefit system is based around the concept of mutual responsibility. I don't think it's unreasonable
not.
to ask for people that are receiving job seeker support, for example, to enrol their children in a well child provider.
All right.
That's not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable to ask them to look for work. That's not unreasonable
Okay,
either.
let's
People are
hang on,
getting their
Jan.
benefits
Jan, let's go to Kris, Labor. What's wrong with what Kris says? It sounds not unreasonable.
Well,
it's the mutual responsibility.
Well, there is some mutual responsibility.
So what do you think of what Kris said?
I'd rather talk about what we want to do, to be fair. There do need to be some questions asked when someone comes along and asks for help. Any MP will know that because people come to their offices.
So you don't agree with the no questions asked policy of the Greens?
Well, because some questions always have to be asked. That's the reality of people who come for help. So the answer for the person out there is yes. So, but it's clear that the general point here is that people who are on low and middle incomes are struggling, and something happens to need to happen in this space because it hasn't happened for the last
and
year.
So raise benefit levels.
Chris and Jan first.
Raise benefit levels. We did that in the last budget. The most recent
not
budget
a lot.
does it.
Not a lot.
Well, $25 a week for those struggling on a benefit is a decent sum of money. Second point, don't get rid of the obligations that move people from welfare into work, because that's getting people into work.
Jan, briefly.
Actually, it's not about no questions. It's getting rid of the fact that if you miss a bus or the bus doesn't turn up or your kid is sick and you can't make an appointment, they're going to cut your income so that you've got no choice to be able to pay your bills. It's getting rid of the cruelty out of the system that is putting people in cars and in hospitals.
So
and
hang
it's
on.
building in case managers who can work with you, who will listen in a relationship of trust.
So final response to Kris,
you
then we get out of here.
You think there should be zero obligation for those on job seeker support to look for work?
People
You might as well
want
rename the
work.
benefit. It's not going to be called job
People
seeker
want
if there's
work,
no
and we've seen it
obligation to look for
without
work.
That's enough.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.